Did you know that the cultivar of Muller-Thurgau is a crossing between two white cultivars, which was orchestrated by Swiss scientist Hermann Müller in the region of Thurgau? Now, being Swiss, as you can see, the naming rationale was hyper-rational. But unfortunately for lovers of simplicity and rationality, Muller-Thurgau did not remain in Switzerland. In fact, it spread to neighboring, more creative countries, and so the names got more creative as well. For example, it spread to Italy, where it is often referred to as Riesling by Sylvaner. Now, as you can imagine, this would cause much confusion on wine labels if people thought it was perhaps a blend of Riesling and Sylvaner, but it's even worse to note that Muller-Thurgau, or Riesling by Sylvaner, is in no way a crossing between Riesling and Sylvaner, but instead is a crossing between Riesling and Madeleine Royale.
Objection! These remarks are profane and irrelevant.
The relevance of all this Muller-Thurgau chit-chat is that today's Hand Drink Solo wine info video focuses on MezzaCorona's Filobianco Riesling by Sylvaner 2020 vintage. And in case I needed to state it again, it is not a blend of Riesling and Sylvaner, but rather 100% Muller-Thurgau. As mentioned earlier, Muller-Thurgau was the result of an orchestrated crossing between Riesling and Madeleine Royale, which was part of a larger Swiss program to increase the productivity of grapes in the 1880s or so. Now, from that perspective, Muller-Thurgau was an epic success because not only was it really easy to grow and early ripening, but it also was more productive than a Catholic bunny on ginseng. As a result of this clear and obvious economic opportunity, the grapes spread like wildfire, first to Germany, where honestly, by the 1970s, it was the most planted grape in the entire country. But fortunately for us all, Riesling put a stop to that. In that sense, after World War II, Muller-Thurgau did for Germany what Cinsault did for South Africa in the early 1900s, helped a crippled economy get back on its feet really quickly. And Muller-Thurgau had a similar effect in New Zealand as well, until at one point it was the fourth most planted cultivar, but Sauvignon Blanc put a stop to that parade. Finally, even the Italians were quite taken by this little Swiss invention. In fact, today, more than 50% of the Muller-Thurgau on the entire planet can be found in Italy. The trouble with overnight successes, and there always is a trouble with overnight successes, is that when you have a grape that is seemingly able to produce epic quantities of fruit with little or no input, the quality of that fruit is middling to low at best, and the flavors are usually bland and good for little more than jug wine and fruit jellies. But the loophole to that trouble, and there always is a loophole to the trouble with overnight successes, is that it was discovered that if Muller-Thurgau is grown on sites with a little bit of altitude, with vines that have been allowed to reach old age, then they really can produce some rather smashing aromatic concoctions of whimsy. The northern Italian regions of Trentino and Alto Adige are exactly such elevated sites. As a result, Muller-Thurgau has really flourished. And today's wine, the MezzaCorona Filobianco Riesling by Sylvaner 2020, comes from the region of Trentino. More specifically, the fruit for this wine came from VIGNETI DELLE Dolomiti IGT, which is a site north of Veneto but south of the Alps, and it translates as Vineyard of the Dolomites. This area features vineyard sites of 200 meters and higher. The Dolomites themselves go up to 3,400 meters above sea level. Fun fact, the Dolomites are home to Europe's highest vineyard, which is 1/3 of a hectare farmed by Gianluca Bisol at an altitude of about 1,350 meters. The vineyard is planted with the incredibly hardy Incrocio Manzoni Bianco, as well as some Solaris, mostly because they tried planting a whole bunch of other stuff and everything died a very swift, frosty death. When we give this guy a sniff, it really is quite festive. It's like a Moulin Rouge montage with swirling lights and skirts and fishnet. There are these generous notes of a kind of tropical lychee, but there's also sweeter, softer green melon. And then there's quite a fascinating lemon note, but it's like lemon sponge cake. And then as you sniff some more, you get this spicy jasmine pollen as well. And it doesn't end there, because if you let it warm in the glass, you start getting these wilder aromas of pink musk sweets and even a hint of papaya, watermelon candy. I mean, this non-binary affair does not pay attention to genre, colors, or categories. And when we take a sip, well, first of all, the palate is quite pleasantly weighted. There are lovely notes of citrus, ripe oranges, and also lime cordial. But then there's really lively lemon acidity, almost like homemade lemonade with a touch of green apple brightness as well. This last little bit is really quite pleasant, given that Muller-Thurgau has a reputation for delivering wines that lack acidity. What's very clear here is that the hyper-organized viticultural team at MezzaCorona have managed to use those high-altitude vineyards to great effect, and they've managed to produce really quite an expressive little number. Well, that's all we have time for today, but if you enjoyed the video, then support us on Patreon and subscribe to the Hand Drink Solar YouTube channel, where we publish 6 videos every month on things like wine science, wine history, unusual cultivars, and some of the rising winemaking stars coming out of the South African or Italian winelands.